boy, we are live, and I gotta tell you guys, I know it's a few 20 minutes late. You know, I'm running it all by myself. You can see I'm not even in the driver's seat. I'm over here in the producer's corner, taking over Brian's chair. Brian's ripping it up in Colorado, enjoying the luxurious mountains, shredding on some gnar. But we couldn't let the show not go on. I know we told you guys we were probably going to take a break these couple weeks, but thought we'd give it a try. We have it here. Why not let it roll? You know, I don't have a nice REthink Tank neon sign to bring us in, but we're here. And because I'm in the driver's seat, it's going to be kind of my episode. And the reactions today are getting a little psycho. We're going crazy. We're doing narcissists. I didn't want to call it, you know, psychos flat out, but we'll call it narcissists to be delicate. But truthfully, we're talking straight psychos. So running through it, we're going to start with Joe Biden, go on to the FBI, Rand Paul grilling them. And then we're going to take a pivot. Anybody remember the climbing in your windows, snatching your people up? Yep, that guy's got some things to say now, and it'll be interesting to bring him in. So that also being said, we're going to wrap it up. I don't even know if I can say it, so we might get a strike on one of these platforms, but we're going to be looking at an interview, or I guess a radio call from the Sandy Hook shooter a year before the big event. And Vince McMahon, he's swirling in the news right now, so we're going to hit an interview that casts a little light onto what we're experiencing today. And then we're going to wrap it with good old Dan Schneider. I don't know if you're familiar with the Quiet on Set documentary that's going all around right now. Drake Bell had a tell-all, and let's just say some crazy stuff happened. And Dan Schneider had some things to say. So while the internet is calling for him to be dragged through the center of town, you know, he does he make some interesting points? I don't know. We'll react. But that being said, we're going psycho. We're going crazy. You know, so the good morning video, I think it's got to bring some levity to the morning, you know, bring us a laugh. I don't know. Yeah, that's the energy we need going into this, because I'm telling you, it's about to. All right, so let's start with us. I mean, the commander-in-chief, the maker of peace across the globe. You know, he must be a strong way to start this morning. So this is Joe Biden, 1974.
As the youngest member of the Senate, the one, therefore, who may expect the longest career there, I wonder if you'd say to us, since it's clear that you're not corrupt and you got elected, why should people think that the system produces corrupt results when there you are?
Well,
there you are.
I'm not sure you should assume I'm not corrupt, but thank you for that, though.
What are you telling us? Like, guys, it's all in plain sight. They do it in front of your nose. That's part of the karma of it all. If they do it in front of you, maybe play it off as satire or comedy, then the karma's there. We told them before we screwed them. Anyway.
The system does produce corruption, and I think implicit in the system is corruption, when in fact, whether or not you can run for public office, and it costs a great deal of money to run for the United States Senate.
I'm here, and implicit in the system is corruption.
For a small state like Delaware, you have to go to those people who have money, and they always want something. We were told that we politicians, as the young kids say, rip.
You need money to compete in this realm, and money comes at a cost. People buy things with money. Money just isn't for free. So for you to get the thing that you need to compromise and trade something they want. What could that be? I don't know. Could it be trillions of dollars to Boeing?
Off the American public. I think the American public, in a way, rips off we politicians by forcing us to run the way they do. To raise $300,000 is no mean feat. And unless you happen to be some sort of anomaly, like myself, being a 29-year-old candidate and can attract some attention beyond your own state, it's very difficult.
He's 29. He's 29. Is this my reality check? Is this my moment? Do I look that old? Do I look old? I mean, I get it. Hairline ain't as sharp as it used to be. But come on. He looks like a daddy. I shouldn't have said that.
Difficult to raise that money from a large group of people. I'm a 29-year-old oddball. The only reason I was able to raise the money is I was able to have a national constituency to run for office. Because I was 29, I'm like the token black or the token woman. I was the token young person. See, I went to the big guys for the money. I was ready to prostitute myself in the manner in which I talk about it. But what happened was they said, come back when you're 40, son.
So, okay, admissions right off the bat. Hey, it's crazy you don't think I'm corrupt. Thanks for saying that. And then also, what does he say? I was prepared to prostitute myself, and I'm sure he succeeded in doing such. But then he's like, the old guys, they said, don't do this. You can't come to the effigy in front of the burning owl until you're 40. Well, guys, 40 for that guy was 30 years ago, and I imagine he definitely checked back in. Anyway, that being said, in the spirit of spending money and anticipating, what's the Latin term? Ipso facto, something in return. Let's talk about Rand Paul over here. This was just this past November 2nd, 2023, where he's grilling FBI Director Christopher Wray. Let's react. I don't know.
The
Let's see.
FBI still meeting with social media companies?
Oh.
We're having some interaction with social media companies, but all of those interactions have changed fundamentally in the wake of the court's ruling.
What are you telling me?
That's sort of an acknowledgement.
Wait, why does
perhaps
it
you
say
weren't just
October
talking
31st?
about national
I guess it's
security,
within
child
3 days.
pornography, and human trafficking, right? You had other areas of discussion that did involve constitutionally protected speech.
No, that's not an acknowledgement of
But
that.
then how did you change your behavior?
Out of an abundance of caution, in order to make sure that we don't run afoul of any court ruling, I would say, by the way, of course, that the injunction has been stayed by the Supreme Court.
Did it?
Walking that tightrope perfectly. I mean, these guys are linguistic samurais.
Anybody from the FBI ever discuss constitutionally protected speech with social media organizations?
Not to my understanding.
Vaccine efficacy, never discussed any post concerning vaccine efficacy.
Well, certainly not, because to my understanding, as you know, the FBI was the first and for a long time the only agency in the intelligence community to assess that the COVID origin was most likely from a lab leak.
I just love that we just casually say that now. We just casually say it. We just like water off the back of the duck. It came from a lab. You are right. Can we just take it back to the interview? Why do you call it a Chinese virus? That's a racist term. Because it came from China. Do you know how hard it was living in a world with a YouTube channel refusing not to call the kettle black? I mean, just call the kettle, the sky's blue, the grass is green. And I wanted to talk about, I don't know, the world pandemic we're living through, and to have a channel silenced to the FBI casually going, well, of all the agencies, of all the intelligence agencies, we were the first to admit casually to nobody. It's like they yelled into a closet with no one there. It came from a lab. Oh, you didn't hear it when we told everybody? Yeah.
The idea that we were
I commend you for
Yeah.
that, but the Twitter files and other indications, as well as the Missouri versus Biden, list many cases of both DHS and FBI discussing constitutionally protected speech, vaccine efficacy, mask efficacy.
Yeah. Back to the mask thing. Isn't it also hilarious that, like, Fauci, we all remember the period where he's like, masks don't work. And then later he's like, we only said they didn't work because we didn't know if we would have enough masks. Now, 4 years later, he's like, yeah, that was all made up. Masks don't work. And the 6 feet thing, that was just a number we made up. There was literally no science to the stickers in your banks and grocery stores spacing people out for social distance. It was just a mind virus we created. We just made it up. Yep. And we just casually move on.
Who said, my brother got the vaccine and died yesterday. And the brother actually did die, but proof of cause and effect is one thing. But taking down posts like that was part of the discussion in these meetings.
Not by the FBI. We would not have been engaging with social media companies about vaccine efficacy, to my knowledge, certainly.
Not us. We just asked Twitter to silence the people we didn't like. It had nothing to do with the vaccine or the COVID thingy. It was just the accounts we didn't like.
Director Wray, in 2017, the Department of Justice issued subpoenas to members of the House Intelligence Committee, congressional staffers, as well as Senate Judiciary Committee staffers to turn over private information. Were you involved with that investigation, aware of it at the time?
I'm not familiar with that specific investigation.
It had to do with the leaks, I believe. We have never been told completely, but the leaks concerning the Crossfire Hurricane and the leaks concerning the conversation between Flynn and Kislyak that was wiretapped, that was classified, that somehow got out. But you're not aware of anybody from Congress being investigated?
Not me.
Well, as I sit here right now, that's not something that's ringing a bell for me.
You see a problem?
I love how they can do that.
Department of Justice issuing subpoenas to congressional staffers who are providing oversight to the very organization that's issuing the subpoenas?
Well, certainly, anytime there's an investigative activity that touches upon a separate branch of government, namely the legislative branch, it has to be done extraordinarily carefully, and there are all kinds of policies that the department has in place to make sure that that's done appropriately.
Director A, did the FBI pay Twitter money to moderate content moderation?
I'm not aware of us paying money to moderate content there or anywhere else.
What was the $3 million for that the FBI gave that's been revealed in Twitter files, which has been characterized by those writing the Twitter files as payment for content moderation? Basically, they said Twitter, you know, you guys were meeting with them all the time, and you had them taking down so many posts, they said, well, gosh, it's a lot of work. Why don't you pay us? And so you did. You paid them $3 million. Are you aware of the payment?
I'm not aware of that specific payment, but I can tell you that when it comes to payments, going back well over 4 decades, when we are required by federal law, when a company, like in this instance a provider, goes through expenses to produce information, we're required to reimburse them for those expenses. And so I think that a lot of the questions about payments revolve around exactly that.
You are full of it, brother. Here's the truth. He just said it. Well, if they perform services for us, we have to compensate them for the resources and time that they burn for that. So, admittedly, what did we get from the Twitter files? That they were performing services directly for you. And how did they get to this type of relationship? So, right now, they get to say, oh, no. They were performing services for us. We were just compensating them for that. But the only reason he gets to pretend it isn't like a direct exchange is because it wasn't directly solicited. It wasn't like, we will pay you for these services. It's, you perform these services for us, and in compensation of that, we will pay you for whatever, you know, is appropriate. So what's funny is they got to this point because social media companies at the beginning of their time, right? So this is only like a new fad that began in the 21st century, around 2008. And Facebook, Twitter, that came slightly after that. These social media companies go, okay, government, we will work directly with you. Do whatever you need of us, insofar as then you will never need to go on your Congress floor and create legislation that polices us. So there has been a direct cooperation between 100% of the social media companies and our government, because on the onslaught of their relationship, it was a preventative measure by the social media companies to ensure that no legislation is actually created. Because once something's created, it's that much harder to change it. And then they'd have to go through all these hoops, buy off all these, you know, congressional representatives. You'd have to take on a large expense. And also, even then, it may not even, it takes a lot of work. So before it even gets black letter law printed, that you can't, it becomes somewhat ironclad. Let's just full-blown cooperate so they never find it necessary to go down there and make law. So here we are down the road 20 years later, and he's like, wait, man, we're just paying them $3 million for services rendered. Why are they doing those services? Off of their own goodwill. No one made them. I never asked them. I never asked them to do it. We may have had an intern email them, but I don't know about that.
And you will repeat under
Wrapping it
oath
here.
that there was never any discussion of the FBI to take down constitutionally protected speech. You think it's all national security, child pornography, sex trafficking, no discussion of constitutionally protected speech, because this is all going to come out, and a lot of it's come out already in depositions, but you're saying there was never any discussion by any of your agents in any of these meetings of constitutionally protected speech being taken down?
To my knowledge, our agents conducted themselves in compliance with the law throughout.
Same question to Secretary Mayorkas. You're not aware of your agents ever discussing any constitutionally protected speech with any of the social media companies?
The same answer as Director Wray provided to you.
Oh, that's convenient. Why do we let them get away with these things? I don't get it. All right, throwing the government away. We're going to move on from that side of things. Let's lighten the mood before it gets darker. Do you recall this guy? I'm sure you do. Back in the viral days. This is a classic. So that's back in the Vine days, back in early YouTube. This guy was on the news. Somebody had broken into his, I think it's Antoine. We'll see it here in a second, his name. But he was on the news because somebody had broken into his home. And he had this wild reaction, and some other creative mind, right? So first off, the news recorded you. That's the news's content. They created that, right? Like, you jumped at the opportunity to be on the news. That's their network. That's their footage. That's like if you were to come on my show right here and say some dumb shit, like, that's mine. Sorry to break it to you. So then, not only is that, then somebody else in the human hive of the internet takes that clip and makes a song of it. And it goes, I mean, iTunes, back in the day when you would pay $1 to pump up music in your iPod, this guy made bank. You know, everybody remember the Double Rainbow song? That was the same time when YouTube was making video songs off of other viral videos. So this guy, who's just a clown from the hood on the news, just like happened to be a bystander in like this viral creative mess. But now, you know, I imagine his situation doesn't change too much. You know, you don't become rich off of somebody else's success. So now he's got some things to say. It's years later and he's coming out of the woodwork. What we got?
Baby, you got to be slow out your rabbit ass mind if you think I'm over here depressed, sad, lonely. I might be broke as hell, but miserable, bitch, no. That ain't even my style, bitch. I make myself happy. Ain't nobody loved me anyway, so I've always had to make myself happy. But what pisses me off is
Oh, God.
seeing all these people come on here attacking me, calling me all this different names, fighting me against people who use
Now, don't be attacking him. But see, the internet can be cruel, and that's the problem, is... Well,
to my image and making profit. Bitch, y'all use my vocals, y'all use my clips, y'all reenact me, only to go on y'all page and I see y'all making 3 and 4 million views, having 10 million views, knowing that equate to a check, and don't come over here and say, hey, Antoine, I used your shit. I done got 4.5 million views and I got a check. Here's something for you. Thank you so much. You are inspiring. But y'all will sit up here and say, no, don't do that, Antoine. They honoring you. Bitch, fuck a honor. Cut me a motherfucking check. That would be very honorable.
Okay. I hate to be the one that has to humble you, buddy, but like, you are owed nothing. You are just a convenient bystander in a viral moment. You know, people that appreciate your situation, they can help, you know, GoFundMe's and everything else. But I've seen you across the internet the past few years. You've already exhausted that. So here's the thing. Let's say, in the theory of things, that like you are actually incredibly talented. Like, this was your viral moment, and you also had Robin Williams level talent. Well, then this is your moment to stardom, because you have a greater platform than, I mean, as somebody that was at the beginning of TikTok and have really pumped out things to only get like a couple thousand followers. Then you came in years later and just boom, viral, big. You now have an audience that is like untouchable and really unwarranted. Like, you really don't have the talent to back up the audience that you just start off with off the bat. And for that to dwindle and not snowball and build speaks to the lack of talent that you're claiming is owed some, I don't know, payout, right? Me and Mom, Jet, like, no, you don't need to be written a check because, one, off of your own volition, you wanted to speak to the news. Like, everybody knows the news doesn't pay people. So do you want to be on the news? You want to be on everybody's television? Come on, for free. You chose to do that. Then, so maybe they have a claim, but even then they know they don't, because through the Freedom of Information Act, this person has created something totally different, a song. So, okay, somebody dresses up like you for Halloween or on a stream. That isn't you. That's the closest thing to your likeness that you might be able to sue for. But a video of a clip that you don't own, none of that is yours. So here's the sad part is you're back to, and check it out on the Rethink Tank YouTube page. Click on over the, so here's where I'm at about NPCs on the internet and this new digital world, this new world of digital panhandling. Check that out. But dude, this is your own version of digital panhandling. You're just out here begging for money, like, because you've got nothing else to back up the initial audience you could start off with. But I thought that was a funny laugh, something interesting to start off with, or to lighten the mood as we take this down the darker ends. So wrapping up this episode, we're going to be talking about Vince McMahon and Dan Schneider. But before we get to those clips, this is a weird one that I came across, and I didn't really have another Rethink or Reactions theme for it to fit with. So this is Adam Lanza. This kid was involved with the Sandy Hook situation, crazy stuff. He called a local radio station a year ahead of time. This is just eerie.
We're back.
Sorry, we got Greg on the phone.
Oh, Greg. Okay. How's it going?
Hi, good. I'm a fan of your writing.
Thank you.
Notice he plays himself off as what, Greg? So he's not even playing as himself?
I'm sorry to mix up such an old news story, but I couldn't find anything that you said about the topic, and it seems relevant to your interests, so I thought I would bring up Travis the Chimp. Do you remember him?
I don't.
Well, he was a highly domesticated chimpanzee who lived in a suburban home in Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And he was raised just like a human child starting from the week he was born. By the time that he was 14 years old, which would be somewhere around age 20 in human years,
Uh-huh.
he slept in a bed, he took his own baths, he dressed himself, he brushed his teeth with an electric toothbrush.
Really? When was this?
Well, this happened in early 2009.
Oh.
Why was that such a fad? Like, why was that such a thing in like the late 90s, early 2000s? Like Michael Jackson, so many people had like monkeys and chimpanzees as pets and like tried to domesticate them like they were people. I mean, I don't know if you all remember, there was a story here in Ohio where some psychopath had like, I can't remember the term, the legal term of these types of animals, but we're talking like super animals, like rhinos, lions, bobcats, monkeys, zebra, and he just like let them all go and then killed himself. So then there were these, not allowed to say those things. Anyway, he did a thing, and then they were all running rampant in Ohio. It was this whole crazy thing. Anyway, let's get it going.
Oh.
He ate his meals at a table and enjoyed human foods like ice cream.
I don't need that.
And he used a remote control to watch television and liked baseball games. And he even used a computer to look at pictures on the internet.
Hasn't anybody seen Nope?
It goes without saying that Travis was very overweight. He was 200 pounds when he should have been around the low hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually...
So ask yourself this. How much of that, just that element, has to do with like a psychotic chimpanzee? I mean, I guess we don't even know why he's talking about the story about the chimp yet, but it's like, if this chimp goes rogue and it's a super obese monkey eating our processed crap, maybe that's why we've got psycho monkeys in our society too.
Xanax.
I mean, just people.
Amazing.
I couldn't find any information about why he was taking it, but it just seems to say a lot that he was giving it at all. And basically, I think Travis wasn't really any different than a mentally handicapped human child. But anyway, one day in February 2009, he was acting very agitated, and at some point grabbed his owner's car keys, went outside and started beeping from car to car, apparently wanting to go for a car ride. And he was acting very aggressively, so his owner called her friend over to get her to help him to calm down and go back inside. And once she arrived, he immediately attacked her, and
Oh, God.
his owner tried to stop him, but couldn't, and she even resorted to stabbing him with a knife, but nothing worked.
I mean, just listen to the way this kid, I mean, let's see. Yeah. How old is he? 1992. He's a year older than me. Insane. So in 2011, you're looking at like 9 years old. So listen to the demeanor. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the kid's articulate, but this is a 9-year-old, so solemn in the way he's talking about such a gruesome thing.
And she said that after she stabbed him, he looked at her as if to say, "Why'd you do that to me, Mom?" Because apparently that was what their relationship was like, no different than between a human mother and a human child. So after the stabbing, she called the police, who arrived 12 minutes after the attack, at which point her friend was pretty close to dead. And once the cruiser came up, Travis went over to it, tried to open the locked passenger door. He smashed off the side view mirror, went over to the driver's door, opened it, and the cop shot him. He fled back into the house, where he went to his playroom and bled to death. And,
Listen to this kid.
This might not seem very relevant, but I'm bringing it up because afterward, everyone was condemning his owner for saying how irresponsible she was for raising a chimp like it was a child, and that she should have known something like this would happen because chimps aren't supposed to be living in civilization. They're supposed to be living in the wild among each other. But their criticism stops there, and the implication is that there's no way anything could have gone wrong in his life if he had been living in civilization as a human rather than a chimp.
Ah, indeed.
So interested in Travis because he brings up questions about this whole process of child raising.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Isn't something which just happens to gently exist without us having to do anything, because every newborn child...
I mean, this is something Kanye would say. He's like, you know, you were the one that domesticated your kid into believing he can't jump on the coffee table. I don't know if you've heard that interview with Kanye, but he's always talking about how, like, a kid jumps on the coffee table, you're the one that yells at him to get off. So, I mean, you could tell there's a screw loose with this kid when he's saying the instinct of a human is the same as trying to domesticate a chimp.
Human child.
He doesn't understand we're trying to live in a society, a community with each other. That's the difficult part. Monkeys don't care. We need each other. That's the piece, the element in your brain that you're missing is like the reason we don't jump on the coffee table and we have this thing of silverware and driving on the right side of this on the road, because we need to try to figure out ways to effectively live with other people. Unfortunately, that means you too.
Is born in a chimp-like state, and civilization is only sustained by conditioning them for years on end, so that they'll accept it for what it is. And since we've gone through this conditioning, we can observe a human family raising a human child, and I'm sure that even you have trouble intuitively seeing it as something unnatural. But when we see a chimp in that position, we viscerally know that there's something profoundly wrong with the situation. And it's easy to say there's something wrong with it simply because it's a chimp, but what's the real difference between us and our closest relatives? Travis wasn't an untamed monster at all. He wasn't just feigning domestication, he was civilized. He was able to integrate into society. He was a chimp actor when he was younger, and his owner drove him around the city frequently in association with her towing business, where he met many different people and got along with everyone. If Travis had been some nasty monster all his life, it would have been widely reported, but to the contrary, it seems like everyone who knew him said how shocked they were that Travis had been so savage, because they knew him as a sweet child. And there were 2 isolated incidents early in his life when he acted aggressively, but summarizing them would take too long, so basically I'll just say that he didn't act really any differently than a human child would, and the people who would use that as an indictment against having chimps live as humans do.
Like, knowing the details of 2 other outbreaks in this chimp's life, and then also not wanting to get into them because it would take too long to try to excuse and justify them. I mean, what an obscure fascination of a 9-year-old is this obsession with a killer chimp.
Wouldn't apply the same thing to humans, so it's just kind of irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, look what civilization did to him. It had the same exact effect on him as it in every sense of the term, and he had to resort to these surrogate activities like watching baseball and looking at pictures on a computer screen and taking Xanax. He was a complete mess.
Mm-hmm.
And his attack wasn't simple.
I mean, he makes a point there. Like, okay, so what are we kind of drawing upon in his subconscious? Maybe there's a mild admission that, like, he's a chimp, like he's got a monkey brain. And he's like, trying to force a monkey square block through the circle hole, trying to make a monkey be a domesticated, watching baseball and trying to make us domesticated. Like, that's what breaks the person. And he right there, he drops a little subtle help. And it's like, how do we aid these situations? We pump them full of Xanax. That's what we're doing. A monkey on top of it. Like, we can't get this, like, it's like a superhuman, super strength, teeth. It'll rip you up to shreds. And it's like, hey, how do we keep him at bay? He's really not listening. We're trying to get him to sit at the kitchen table. He just keeps throwing forks. It's like, well, just pump him full of Xanax. And now you got this it's a doped gorilla. Like, hey, yeah, I'll just take more Twinkies. And then they're like, yeah, he's super overweight. We can't understand why his cognitive health is all jacked up. I don't know. Interesting story. There's things to parse apart about the monkey himself, but I just can't get over the fascination of a 9-year-old of, like, all the intimate details, and what he's fixated on is like, well, we're monkeys and you're trying to force a monkey to be domesticated. We're wild and free. And it's like, no. You're the one with the wild monkey brain.
Because he was a senselessly violent, impulsive chimp, which was how his behavior was universally portrayed.
AKA, I'm not. Let's go back. Let's hear that just real quick.
Which was how his behavior was universally.
Mm-hmm.
And his attack wasn't simply because he was a senselessly violent, impulsive chimp, which was how his behavior was universally portrayed.
So portraying this kid and what he does a year later as gruesome and barbaric is an unfair characterization. And he's making that defense a year before even taking such a psychotic action. It's almost like it was inevitable, or he definitely knew this was an action he was going to take, and he's comparing it to being a wild man in a domesticated world.
Immediately before his attack, he had desperately been wanting his owner to drive him somewhere. And the best reason I can think of for why he would want that, looking at his entire life, would be that some little thing he experienced was the last straw, and he was overwhelmed by the life that he had, and he wanted to get out of it by changing his environment, and the best way that he knew how to deal with that was by getting his owner to drive him somewhere else.
Yeah.
And when his owner's friend arrived, he knew that she was trying to coax him back into his life of domestication, and he couldn't handle that, so he attacked her and anyone else who approached him. And dismissing his attack as simply being the senseless, violent impulsiveness of a chimp instead of a human is wishful thinking at best.
What a narrative.
The attack can be seen entirely parallel to the attacks, random acts of violence that you bring up on your show every week.
It's leaving the radio hosts speechless. They're just like, as he continues to build this case in defense, they're just like
committed by humans, which the mainstream also has no explanation for. And
No.
Actual human, I just don't think it would be such a stretch to say that he very well could have been a teenage mall shooter or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Wow. Thank you,
were
Greg.
chill, brother.
yeah,
That's quite a story. Yeah, that's really apropos, isn't it? Travis the chimp.
It's just that I'm a little surprised that I never heard you bring it up at all, because maybe I'm just seeing connections where there aren't any, but...
Not, I think not.
I'm surprised you've never brought it up. Yeah, no, dude, this isn't top of mind. Yeah, no, like your obsession with this chimp story, it's a story no one else knows. I'm surprised you didn't bring it up. We're not.
No, I didn't catch that one. I didn't, maybe I was out of the country or something. I don't know, but I missed it. Thanks very much, man.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Wow, very well articulated, I think.
I mean, is deflated the whole broadcast. Oh, wow. Scooby Dooby Doo. Anyway, let's get it to Vince McMahon. I don't know if you're familiar with what's been going on. As I'm kicking around the angles here. In the weeks following a disturbing sex trafficking lawsuit being filed against Vince McMahon, many questions are still without answers. So there's this major lawsuit where there's a lot of legal questions that I don't think we're going to get answers for at least a few years. There's a lot of WWE and past wrestlers that are coming out, Ronda Rousey, people within his family coming out, standing up against him. And, Vince McMahon is saying he's, quote, vigorously going to defend himself. And so, interestingly enough, this is a video that had surfaced from years ago on a talk show. And, it's an interesting light onto today's events.
And I don't want
back to 1992.
I don't want it.
I'd like to reiterate the question. Do you believe there is sexual harassment amongst the wrestlers or employees of the World Wrestling Federation today?
There is a possibility of that. That's why I have these independent investigators to come in.
And who are these independent investigators?
Fairfax Group Limited. And I would like, to hear what you have to say, and everyone has to say. I want to get to the bottom of it.
Would you therefore believe that because of all these allegations coming forward and more corroborating evidence proving that there's no doubt sexual harassment is running rampant in the World Wrestling Federation, that you are definitely going to come public and do something about it?
Why wouldn't
That was 30 years ago.
If in fact that is the case, why wouldn't I do something about it? Why would I risk what we have?
Because you haven't.
See, and that's the beauty of hiring some independent, investigator, because then you get to wipe your hands of all liability. Oh, I didn't know, like the things that they didn't catch. Hey, but like, how much did you change your practices, and how much did your practices, announced or unbeknownst, how much of them had an impact
done anything about it until it became public because you thought it was
Because I
underwater.
had no knowledge of it.
I made knowledge of it to you when I was fired, and you just blew it off and let me go. I
You were
retained
fired
a lawyer.
because you were not very good. You were not a very good announcer. You could not. That's the only reason why.
I mean, come on, there is some truth to that. As somebody that works in government, a headache is sometimes you're just not up to snuff. And the problem, I think, a lot of times why government doesn't work is because, unlike a corporation, you can't just go, you're out, you're out. Here was the standard. You didn't meet it. You're out. There's like 10 million hoops you got to go through before it could be like, yes, you were insufficient, but you're out. This guy, it's his business. I run the whole bad boy. And that's some of the funness of watching Barstool, right? They bring us kind of on the inside behind the curtain. You see a lot of it, but it's like, it's Dave Portnoy's. And the second he thinks you're not, there's plenty of people that have stepped on his toes and ruffled feathers, but at the same time have a big enough draw and making enough money for him that he's like, but you know what? I don't like you. We have our gripes, but I'm keeping you. Then there's other people where it's like, no, you're out. I don't need the headache, and you're not bringing me any value. So I see Vince McMahon. He's like, no, you sucked, and I'm just gonna say it. And this is the dichotomy. Going after him for the SA stuff, the assault stuff, that's one thing. Some disgruntled employee because he got fired, like, dude, do better. That's it. Like, why do I have to dance around your feelings when I got a Rock? The Rock walked in. I got The Rock. And then as soon as he walked in, I got John Cena. And who are you?
You were fired. You could not make the transition from radio to television. That is the only reason why you were fired.
I would like to remind you, sir, that I have a 2-year
You just saw publicly the you got a face for radio
contract. 2
You
years.
also have a clause in your contract that states, and as you know, you were hired on a trial basis.
I was not hired on a trial basis.
You do not have a contract?
Mr. McMahon, I have a 2-year deal with your
contract,
firm.
you will note in a clause that states very clearly, and I have it outlined for all to see here today, that you can be fired almost at whim if, in fact, you're not doing a good job. You did a horrible job. That's the only reason why you were fired. That's it.
Maybe I should point out, first and foremost, that might be your inability to pick good talent.
It could be.
You had a national
Granted.
talent search, Vince McMahon.
Could be.
You advertised in Billboard magazine and across many different media sources searching for one man that could be the new face and voice of the World Wrestling Federation. You flew me in back and forth 4 and 5 different times from Detroit, and you chose over the course of 1 year of negotiations that I would be the man for that job. I didn't sleep with your vice president. 2 weeks later, I'm fired. I also want to point out one very important fact. From your office came a letter to my landlord to verify my employment. From that letter, I must bring this point up. It says Murray Hodson has a very secure job with Titan Sports and is a positive and productive employee. From your office. Just because I don't sleep with your vice president, that qualifies to blow me out of a 2-year deal?
That took a turn.
I don't buy it.
Right.
Wow. I mean, that's what the industry was.
Hey, look, Vince, your vice president made a pass at me. You never told me that. No one had any knowledge. Human resources had no knowledge of that. Rene Dubose was waiting to hear.
See, that's the problem. If lack of knowledge continues, just like the FBI video we watched earlier, if lack of knowledge continues to be a defense, then we'll just all live in a delirium. Like, oh yeah, I don't remember. If I didn't know and HR didn't know, then it had nothing to do with it, even though the vice president has total pull in everybody's employment.
Your story. Why did you wait 6 months? You asked me for $160,000 today, otherwise you were coming on this program. I'm happy you're on this program.
Mr. McMahon, do not try to deflect the truth here. First and
What are you
foremost,
asking for? How much money have you asked for?
I have never asked for any amount of money from you. You have tried to buy me off to shut up so I wouldn't come forward and tell of these allegations that's running through the World Wrestling Federation.
See, we are experiencing a real dichotomy right now in this time period of life. And it's that everybody and their neighbor wants to be, a part of, I want to be in a movie, I want to be in a TV show, I want to blah, 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 blah. But then, here's the thing. It being one of the most wanted things by people means demand so high that the cost can be mirrored to equally as high. So, there's no dollar sign on standards or things that are 1 in a million. So the cost gets even higher than a dollar bill, y'all. So in 1992, you got a female vice president. She's like, do you know what I had to do to get here? Now it's time for you to suck on me, baby. How bad do you want to be here? And it's like, I in no way justify or excuse, but also, what's crazy is how much we didn't give much value or appreciation to the Me Too movement, because it was while it served value, it was collecting a lot of unnecessary and unwarranted people in its net. And so it kind of got a bad rep. But here's what's something awesome is I don't think we would have ever taken this major and powerful industry and forced itself to look at itself in the mirror without kind of that snowball impact. And so we're finally, these two worlds are finally colliding. Today's modern disdain for taking advantage of people in those situations, and also the market that used to be. That was it. You pay us with favors that, are unmonetizable, beyond the standard of money, and we'll give you your wildest dreams. And what's crazy is y'all still did it because y'all wanted to achieve those dreams. It's like, anyway, that being said, let's wrap with one final topic. I'm sure you all have been And if not, go check it out on HBO. There's Quiet on Set, this new documentary that's come out where Drake Bell has been able to give a little bit of an insight into his experience and being assaulted as a child star on Nickelodeon. And the first half of the series, it's all these other stars kind of making claims against Dan Schneider. Now, here's what's interesting, crazy dichotomy. Drake Bell talks about a minor attracted person on the set that got convicted as assaulting him, and that person. So as soon as that person got arrested, he gets a call from Dan Schneider. He tells Dan Schneider goes, "Was it you? Were you the one?" And Drake, having faith in him, admits to it. And he goes, "That's all I needed to know. I have your back, and whatever you need, I'm here for you," and then hangs up. And Drake Bell takes on the position that Dan Schneider has always been there to support him, even through those times. While there were many, many stars that came to the defense of his to the person that assaulted him. That all being said, it was a crazy documentary. I mean, look what I'm saying. You got to go check this crazy stuff out. That being said, the whole first half is all that and all these other kids coming about talking about Dan Schneider and all the creepy, weird, terrible things he did on set. And we still don't have any answers about how much I think he really did have intervention in the demise of Amanda Bynes. And I think her brain is so scrambled that I don't know if we'll ever find out, unfortunately. That being said, in response to Quiet on Set, Dan Schneider puts out his own 20-minute interview. I don't think we're definitely not going to have time to watch it all, but at least to get a little flavor of it.
Hey, it's Boogie. I played T-Bo on Nickelodeon's iCarly.
Wait. There's no way. You're telling me this dude... Hold on. You're telling me this guy... Stop. Oh, okay. There we go. You're telling me Dan Schneider brings in the smoothie guy to interview him? He's like, all right, I need some cred. I need somebody to come to my fence that worked with me on set and knows I'm not a diddler. I'm not a diddler. So he brings in the smoothie guy with his stack of pickles. All right.
I got a chance to watch the Quiet on Set program, and I reached out to Dan to see if it was something that he'd be willing to discuss. I'm pleased to say that he said yes. Dan, how are you?
I'm okay.
That's unfortunate.
Really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to talk to you about what we saw over the last 2 nights.
I'm really glad you're here because I believe this is important.
For sure.
We've got a lot of things to unpack. But before I dive into my list of topics that I'd like to discuss, is there anything you'd like to start off with?
Absolutely. Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult. Me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret. And I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
Let's talk about the massages.
Okay.
Watching the content yesterday, it was disturbing.
It was wrong. It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position.
Oh, okay. And we'll just move on. It was wrong. It was wrong, and it was 30 years ago.
It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation.
So he would have people on set, kids and just, production assistants, make them give him massages on set. That's how much and a lot of it was just like a power move. Like I'm the king here. I call the shots. I rule the roost. Massage me. And the fact that it came from kids. But here's the thing, and you're going to see a theme here. The get out of jail free card is there were other adults around. The parents were there. My beef ain't over with the parents. It's with them too.
And even additionally, I apologize to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owed.
This is funny. A theme also is that, again, there were all these people around. No one stopped me. There was executives.
As well.
Yeah. Dan, talk to me about the writer's room. From what I saw, not cool.
No. And I don't mean to cut you off, but if I can cut right to the chase, let me just say, No writer should ever feel uncomfortable in any writer's room, ever, period, the end, no excuses. Most TV writers, comedy writers have been in writers' rooms, and they are aware that a lot of times there are inappropriate jokes made and inappropriate topics come up. But the fact that I participated in that, especially when I was leading the room, it embarrasses me. I shouldn't have done it.
That's just neckbeard is so gross.
I can tell you why it hurts really bad for me.
Tell us.
I remember very
tell us why it hurts so bad for you, not the emotional scars on the children.
My early experiences, my first experiences in the entertainment business. I was green, I was scared, I was excited. It meant the world to me that I was getting those opportunities. And I went in and I got lucky because they were great. My first couple of experiences were fantastic. And the fact that I didn't pay that forward to every employee that walked through my door, it hurts my heart because I should have. And I wish I could go back and fix that. In the writer's room, there's no doubt that sometimes those jokes went beyond the pale and I said things that went too far or made practical jokes that went too far. And that was wrong. And that was because, I was an inexperienced producer. I was immature. Wouldn't happen today. But I'm just really sorry it happened.
Wouldn't happen today. Happened in the past. Sorry. Bury him under the jail.
Yeah. Now, we know you've had a lot of success over 2 decades. Thousands of people have worked with you, for you. Okay. Let's speak directly to the people who did not have a good experience with you.
Yeah, let's talk to them.
I'd like to speak to those people because I hate that anybody worked for me and didn't have a good time. You know me. You've been on my set.
I hate that they didn't have a good time. We were all there for a good time. I had a good time. You didn't have a good time. I had a good time.
Look, I've had some employees that have worked for me for 10 years, some more than 20 years, who would work with me again. But
I had some people I didn't touch, and they would love to work again. I don't know what's up his ass.
Not everybody. There's still a significant number that didn't have a great time working for me. So my batting average isn't nearly high enough in that area. And the way they wouldn't get the best of me is that I would let the pressure of doing 40 or even more episodes per year, I would let that pressure get to me, which a good boss should never, ever do.
So there's specific things that you were doing?
Sure. I would snap at people sometimes. I would be snarky when I could have given them a nicer answer. I would not give people the time that they needed. I would be in too big a hurry to get on to the next.
Please, 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 please don't let me think you believe all of this backlash is because you were snarky. We're beyond the snarkiness, dude. I want to talk about where your fingers were.
I had to do. And watching that show, it made me, there were so many times I wanted to pick up a phone and call some of those people and say, I'm so sorry and let's talk about it. And I wish you'd had a better time and I wish I could have shown you a better experience. Yeah.
Now,
I wish you had as much fun as I did. I mean, it was a good time.
You've written hundreds of episodes. Thousands of jokes have been told.
Yeah.
But currently where we are, some people think that some of those jokes
this is a good point.
Inappropriate for children.
This is a good one, and
What do you think of that?
All these jokes that you're speaking of, that the show covered over the past 2 nights, every one of those jokes was written for a kid audience because kids thought they were funny and only funny. Okay? Now we have some adults looking back at them 20 years later through their lens, and they're looking at them and they're saying, I don't think that's appropriate for a kid show. And I have no problem with that. If that's how anyone feels, let's cut those jokes out of the show. Just like
it was the show. You can't just cut the show.
25 years ago. I cut it. I want my shows to be popular. I want everyone to like it. The more people who like the shows, the happier I am.
Yeah.
So if there's anything in a show that needs to be cut because it's upsetting somebody, let's cut it.
So I think it's big for you to say with your work, if it's viewed as that today, you don't have a problem.
Cut it. Cut it.
I mean, that's a solution.
The last thing I want to ever do is put any content in a show that's going to upset my audience and make them want to turn off the TV. Why would I ever want to do that?
That makes sense.
I mean, so okay, there's a fair point there because this is a lot of what we're dealing with here. he raises a strong point that I've been wrestling with ever since I heard it. And it's, he was making shows for kids. And all of us as kids found them fun, truly entertaining, and never once did we feel inappropriate. Also, yeah, like maybe there were some innuendos, but we never picked up on it. Disney does it all the time. Those are sometimes hidden jokes for the parents because a lot of parents are trying to safely monitor what their kids are watching, so they watch it with them. So he raises a great point. How unfair of us to live it, find no problem with it. Then once we become adults, sexualized and everything else, lived our adult lives, and we went through puberty, and here we are down the other side. Now through our lens, squirting somebody, covering her in honey seems highly perverted. At the same time, when you're a kid, it's funny because she's getting covered in honey. I mean, being slimed was awesome. I was slimed, and I loved that aspect of Nickelodeon. At the same time, you go, now there's some weird aspects to it, but is it really? Or is it us just looking at it with our adult lens? And it was never made for us. So is that fair of us to do? I also think it's a cheeky way out to go, well, we'll just cut it. We'll just cut it. Whatever you think is queer, weird and creepy, we'll just cut it. It's like, no, because that was kind of the whole show. Like the whole show was, covering toes and goo and like shots on the it was weird. It was weird. And the problem I have is while I see that excuse and I kind of resonate with it, I also go, but there are just some of them that are inexcusable. And the biggest piece, we didn't get to it, but in the interview, he also goes, and hey, everybody thinks I just made all the rules. I just called all the shots. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. There were levels of executives that it all got approved with. So like it went up the chain. So it isn't me. There were parents all on set, and they all let it go. I mean, even watch the Quiet on Set documentary. Some mothers like, yeah, I finally caught my daughter getting emailed pictures from a production assistant, and I didn't want to call the police because then they would think I'm a bad mother. So I just removed her from set, and that was her last time ever at Nickelodeon. It's like, well, you're part of the problem. It's like you don't want people to think you're bad. Now I think you're a bad mother. You not going to the police, nobody's going to hate you for how long it took you to find out. These people are sneaky and they're predators. So when you find out, your lack of action is when we're going to judge you. So what's crazy is, again, back to the interview, he continues to go on like, hey, it wasn't me. There were all these other people watching, and let it go. It's like, yeah, no, we've got a large room full of a lot of people that we have convictions against. So interesting stuff. I mean, the interview goes on for, I think, at least another 25 minutes. So definitely, if you haven't checked it out, check it out. But guys, the whole purpose of the live show is to get you involved. So be sure to hit the comments so we can get you involved. We're going to get back to a lighter, more fun tone once Brian gets back. I think I got one more secret show with me, and then we should have Brian back. We'll get back to the fun, but I hope next week should be fun too. So I had to get it out of my system. There were some crazy ones. I needed to get it out of my system. That being said, you can find all of our content on our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. That's right. Me, Brian, and David, we do another live show Tuesdays at 7 p.m. So check that out on the Rethink Tank channel. We got clips. You can check out our clips channel. Those are coming out too, but don't miss out. We got a new podcast coming out again, a new episode, and another So Here's Where I'm At. So a lot more coming your way. So don't miss them. Otherwise, guys, you catch us every week, Sunday, 9 a.m., and we'll catch you next time. Peace.